Welcome back to Clicksuasion. I'm Michael Barbera. This next episode, Nudge Pembroke, was recorded with a live studio audience at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. UNC-Pembroke has an incubator that is redefining their community. And to tell us a little bit about their incubator, their director, Thomas Hall.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for coming, and Clicksuasion, thanks for the panel. I just want to spend a minute talking about the center. This is the Thomas Center for Entrepreneurship Incubator. Our mission is to help startups succeed so they create jobs. It's a pretty simple metric. And there's two ways that we really get at meeting that objective. First of all, this facility is newly renovated, 20,000 square feet. We have 9 incubator spaces, 12 accelerator spaces, an idea lab, and a maker space.
Thank you, Thomas. Everyone here on the Clicksuasion team is extremely grateful for what you do for us, and more importantly, what you do for our community. We're a better place because of you. Thanks for listening. Up next, Nudge Pembroke.
Why is the shopping cart always in the top right of the screen?
How do companies predict my purchases?
Why do prices end in 9?
Why do fast food companies use red and yellow in their logos?
Why do restaurants always have one expensive menu item?
Researchers, marketers, and very curious people seek the answers for how we make decisions and how we choose products. Clicksuasion finds the secrets that companies use and shares them with you.
Why do I feel better when I bought the last remaining airline ticket?
How do I make choices based on colors and fonts?
Welcome to Clicksuasion. We are live from the beautiful campus of the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. We have 4 phenomenal panelists with us today. Each panelist will discuss something about marketing, branding, research, or something fascinating that we yet do not know. So educate us. Let's meet our panelists. Suzanne Altobello, here's what we know about you. Suzanne is a marketing professor at the University of North Carolina-Pembroke. Her research interests are consumer behavior, digital marketing, technology acceptance, and international pricing. Suzanne, tell us something we do not know about you.
I always thought I was 99.99% Italian, but I just got my DNA results back, and I am 11% Middle Eastern and North African, and discovered a great-grandmother who is the Contessa of Portugal. So I'm super excited that I am now royalty, as Tom Hall mentioned earlier today, and so you can bow to me later.
Caroline Glackin is a professor of entrepreneurship at Fayetteville State University. Caroline, we know that you research microloan capital, entrepreneurial finance. What don't we know about you?
You may know, but others don't. I actually got to teach in Germany last summer in Cologne for 2 weeks, and I taught Chinese students and a fellow who was raised in Fayetteville about customer discovery. So that was kind of fun.
Wow.
I wrapped 3 weeks of vacation around it.
Caroline, welcome to Clicksuasion. Kim Adamof. Kim, we know that you are a marketing fanatic. We know that you've launched 2 successful businesses, and we know that you founded Raleigh Inbound Marketing. Kim, what do we not know about you?
I have 2 kids in college at the same time right now, and I am so looking forward to them graduating in May.
Kim, welcome to Clicksuasion. And our final panelist, Cyndi Fifield. Cyndi, we know that you are a branding fanatic, so you 2 behave back there on the far right side of the table. We know that you founded Novae Design Group. We know that you have a plethora of experience in several different industries as branding and marketing. What don't we know about you?
Well, kind of like my cohort here, I have 4 kids, 2 of which are out of college, 1 in college, and 1 almost there. So we are slowly getting our house empty as well, which is falling apart. So that's okay.
Cyndi, welcome to Clicksuasion.
Thank you.
Here's how the format's going to go for the next hour. Yes, you are stuck with us for the next 60 minutes. We're going to harass you with hopefully some interesting content. Each panelist will join us for 5 minutes to discuss an interesting topic and tell us something that we do not know about marketing, branding, or help us guide to where we want to be. Following that, we're going to have a fireside chat, and then it's the audience's turn to harass the panelists with your questions. Are we ready? Yes. All right, our first panelist, Suzanne, come on down.
I am interested in consumer motivation and consumer measurement. And the way that that manifests itself in some of my work has been with local and other types of entrepreneurs and startup companies that are looking to identify those aspects of their customer target markets and their existing databases, existing resources to identify how to communicate with them and how to develop a strategic plan to reach them. So in the past probably 10 years, I had done a lot of work with Sprint in Missouri, helping their product development unit back in the early 2000s when we were designing 2 and 2.5G phones and moving towards predicting what customers would want and how they would interact with their phones when we got to 3G. So think back to those days, I was doing experiments using Palm Pilots. Do you remember those? Yeah, so I was doing experiments with those because even Sprint did not have handsets that could manipulate video and streaming pictures and things like that. So I was kind of lucky enough to be involved in a lot of mobile marketing efforts back in the early development of that, and then that morphed into social media. And so now what I focus a lot on is trying to help companies understand that even though we measure everything nowadays, so many small businesses actually never look at that information. Now, or if they do, they rely on what I call univariate dashboards, right? So if you go into your Facebook pages or you go into your Twitter feeds and so on, you could get some very flat, single variable information pieces about your customers. But that doesn't give you the sort of multivariate or the way that a lot of consumer variables interact with each other. And to do that, you often have to download the raw data and do a little bit of data visualization, do a little pivot charting, do a little additional types of consumer measurement or interpretation of the numbers. Well, we know that as businesses, you know, a lot of our small business owners in this area and around the world really don't have that capacity. So what I've been really doing is trying to figure out how to educate entrepreneurs into not being scared of data, but how to strategically use it in their efforts. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the things I've been really interested in, and if you listen to one of the earlier episodes of Clicksuasion, when I talked to Michael about virtual reality and gamification, I'm always interested in consumer motivation. And that kind of emerged more from my inherent laziness in terms of athletics or any kinds of exercise. And so I am not motivated by badges or the Kilimanjaro badge on Fitbit, or if I go to bed in my Fitbit, which I don't wear because I really only used it for about a month when I was doing a research project on it. But if my Fitbit said 9,998 steps when I was ready to go to bed, I just went to bed. Whereas lots of other people I know would continue to walk around their bed in order to get to that 10,000 mark so that they get their badge for the day. But from a business perspective, I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by customers that are willing to do things and willing to engage with a company in order to get badges or in order to get social recognition or social rewards. Me, I want some economic rewards. So when Walgreens, for example, integrated their rewards system with Fitbit, we're talking. If I could actually make some money, and I'll do those extra steps around the bed if I have to. So for me, economic rewards are more motivating than social rewards. And so if an organization can understand who are those consumers, how do we differentiate those kinds of consumers from those that want social rewards to those that want economic rewards, then we can really identify strategic marketing efforts aimed at each one of those and turn those followers into brand advocates. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm really interested in. Gamification, right now, I'm doing gamification of financial well-being. And some of my students that are here today in my market research class, we're doing that because, again, I'm motivated by money or economics. And so I'm rewarding myself for little wins. So when I took the kids to Taco Bell and I didn't eat Taco Bell, I gave myself a $5 tip. So it's gamification of those kinds of positive behavioral change that we want to see, and then how do we translate that to customers? So that's really my stuff right now.
Thanks, Suzanne. So we've learned that Suzanne prefers gamification because she's lazy. We've learned that entrepreneurs are scared of data.
Yes.
And we've also learned that you're old if you remember Palm Pilots. Next in the hot seat, we have Caroline. Caroline, come on down.
Shift gears completely now, and I teach entrepreneurship, but I have a focus on finance. And I want you to take a minute to visualize the situation, okay? Imagine that you're 30 years old, which for some of us is a really awesome thought. Imagine you're 30 years old, you're an African-American woman, your household has an income of about $30,000. You have poor credit, because when you were younger, you made some decisions that maybe you wouldn't make as a 30-year-old. But your credit is not good. You live in PG County, Prince George's County, DC, one of the worst educational communities around. And you have 3 kids. And you want some more money. You can get your child into a parochial school to get them out of the public school. The oldest one's getting ready for school. But you need some more money. But you can't work full-time right now. And you don't have a credit card. So if you want to start a business, you can't draw on your credit card. You don't own a house. You can't take a home equity loan out. And you find out that there's this program where they'll help you get money. I don't know that I believe that they'll get me money, but I'll go see. Okay? And then the adventure begins. I want to hold that thought in your head for a minute, and I'm going to start talking about how we look at this sort of person's life through a behavioral lens. Okay, I ran one of those lines, and I started waking up in the morning wondering if the way we were doing things was the right way to do things. That's actually how I ended up doing my doctorate. Okay, because I couldn't find answers while doing that job. And wondered if it was the right thing. And why we had all this money running around, people in these loan funds saying, we have money, why can't we find customers? And then whenever you go out on the street, the word on the street is, of course, there's no money to be had. There's no money to be had. Well, that's a disconnect. It's a market failure. Okay? Market failure is a great opportunity to try to figure out what's going on. Okay? So, I wanted to tell you a little bit about internet lending. It's been around officially since the 70s or 80s, and there are about 700 organizations still today. And the SBA does have a microloan program, but what they define as a microloan is much bigger, and their rules are much stronger. Like you have to be in business for 6 months to get the loan. Okay. My work looked at the barriers, boosters, costs, and constraints to micro customers, people with 5 or fewer employees, getting access to capital. What was going on? Okay? And I found that gap, like I mentioned, and I started doing research with 2 different programs, one of which was a rural program out in Minnesota, very training oriented, all about teaching you to do the entrepreneurial thing. The other one was an urban program. About half of its borrowers, I recall, were Spanish speakers primarily, and it was very focused on getting money out the door. Started looking at them, and we realized, and this is hard to see for those of you who are here with us, but I started looking at what were the factors in their decision to borrow. Okay, because a lot of people would start the process and not finish. In our fund, about 1 in every 10 people pursued the actual loan, and that was not atypical. And I started to look at it, and people had what they consider sunk costs. They actually have to do certain things. I'm not going to go into those in detail. And then they have other lump sum costs that they have to spend if they get a loan approved. Okay? And then they have costs, of course, interest charges, late fees, all those kinds of things over time. And then they have regulatory barriers. But what I started looking at is the behavioral factors. the trust that they need? Are they doing discounting and looking at that loan as taking on debt rather than acquiring money and placing more prominence onto that? So then what we started looking at is how do we, and there's a whole bunch of factors there, how do we change programs so that those barriers can get taken away? And we'll talk a little bit more about things you can do, but there are ways that we can design quasi-public goods so that we're not rationing them and so that we're making them available. And using behavioral economics is one way of doing it.
So we've learned that being 30 is potentially a good thing, depending on which side of the spectrum you're on.
Potentially.
We've learned that market failure is potentially a good thing as well. And we've also learned that Caroline sought a doctorate because she wasn't getting answers where she currently was working. All right. Our next panelist is Kim Adamof. Kim, come on down.
Present. I have a couple different clients that I work, several different clients that I work with. And what I did was thought about what I wanted to share with you. And it was all about analytics and looking at marketing. So I specifically ran Facebook advertising to collect all this data, and I wanted to share some of the lessons that I learned from running these ads. I had 3 clients that I was focused on, and I ran three different campaigns. The Tapestry is a 55-plus active adult community, and their Facebook advertising, I was testing the images for the audience. The Mr. Stickies is a brand new franchise in Raleigh, and they just started in January. First week in January, I started running their Facebook ads. And I was testing for age groups and interests, and I'll show you how I set up the ads so that you can see what I was testing for. And then there was a law firm which started all of this. When he asked me, I thought about the Versace Law and the campaign that I ran for them. It's for pension. And they were looking, I was testing their short form versus long form landing. Okay, so finding your target audience, and I find with all my clients that a lot of times they really don't know who their target audience is. So they'll come to me and they'll say, I want to run a Facebook ad. And I'll say, well, who are you targeting? And right away they say everybody. And of course we all know you can't target everybody, you don't have the money for it. So before you start targeting to find the right people, you need to figure out exactly who you want in the advertising before you start running it. So it's a good idea to create buyer personas and try and think about who is that person that kind of is your best client, and write down everything you can about them and build a profile out. What are their likes, their dislikes, their interests, activities, hobbies, everything you can think about this buyer persona, and that will really help you when you start your advertising. A lot of times my clients don't know, so I use advertising, A/B testing to try and figure out who's their audience. And I tell them, I set the expectation up front, I say, it might take me a month or 2 to figure out who your audience is, because we'll know we have the right audience when you have a relevance score. Your Facebook relevance score is over 7. A relevance score at Facebook is from 0 to 10. 10 being that your ads meet the expectations of the audience that you're targeting, and anything over 6 or 7, you're doing pretty good. The reason why you want to focus on your relevance score is because your cost per click will go down. That means that you're matching your audience to your ad. So the A/B testing, I set up multiple versions of the ad and let them run just to see what they would do. Then I looked at the analytics to see which ones were performing the best. I also used URL parameters in the Facebook advertising. So every ad had its own URL parameter, and it's a little code that you put in. So I could look on Google Analytics and see how much traffic the ads was actually drawing to the website, and to find out if they were actually getting they're meeting their objectives. If you want to go to Google Analytics to find this information, you go to the behavior section, then you go to your site content, and then you look at all pages. And when you look at that page under Google Analytics of all pages, you can actually see where there's the URL for the page and then a question mark, and then your little code. So then you can set up a spreadsheet and actually match the ad all the way through the process. to try and figure out which ones are performing the best. And on this one, for the tapestry, I was comparing the images. The ad on the left has a picture of the sign, and the ad on the right has a picture of a group of people. So I wasn't really sure. I used the same exact audience for both ads, and I wasn't really sure which photo would really resonate with the audience. And surprisingly, the photo with the sign did much better. The cost per result was 18 cents for the one with the sign. It had 508 views, and it had a relevancy score of 8. Where the ad with the picture of the people had a cost per result of 45 cents, only 203 views, and a relevancy score of 7. So I would judge both of them as successful, but in this example, I was really excited to get it down to 18 cents a click, and the relevancy score all the way up to an 8. Now on this one, is it the same one?
No.
Oh. Okay, so on this one, this is Mr. Sticky, and I did not know at all, because it's a brand new business, what to target. So I decided to put it into groups of 20 to 28, 29 to 39, and 40 to 55. And I stopped at 55 because of diabetes and too much sugar. I didn't think anybody over 55 would want to go get sticky buns, although they could, but that's what I was targeting. So 20 to 28, I focus on craft beer and food trucks, because they're pretty popular. The 29 to 39 was craft beer and bakeries, and then the 40 to 55 was food and bakeries. As of today, as of Sunday, we had 1,662 followers. So from January 5th, when we started this, we went all the way up to that many followers, running just these ads. And you can see that the relevancy score is at 9 and 10. So that was a real shock to me, because I guessed right the first time. And so we just kept throwing more money at it. And I am out of time. And I'll just, should I share this? The ad group? Okay, so the law firm was comparing the long form and the short form. And for landing pages, the short form performed much better. The ads ran, and the short form definitely pulled in 1,247 web hits, where the long form only pulled in 400. Thank you.
So we've learned about relevancy scores. We can't target everyone, and now that I am really craving a Mr. Sticky Bun. Our final panelist. All right, that took a lot to get out. Cyndi Fifield. Cyndi, come on down.
I did not do a slide. I'm very sorry, but I have my notes on a clipboard because I love clipboards. I'm an office junkie, so what can I say? So Cyndi Fifield, I am a business branding expert. How did I become that is what I want to explain to you first. The first 43 years of my life, I moved 22 times as a military dependent, either as a child or a spouse. So that equates to a lot of addresses, which I've got still probably half of them memorized. What I learned though very early on is that I had to learn to get a job quickly, be able to market who I was, and be able to compete with a whole lot of other people that were moving at the same time we were. Because we would move a whole ship at a time to a new duty station, a whole command with the Army to a new duty station, just depending on what branch we were in at the time. So I had to learn very quickly how to do that. By learning to do that for myself, I was able to help my other wives around me on how to do that as well. How to walk into a job interview and get it on your first try. From there, I went into marketing, and that kind of just came to where I am today, as helping other people not just brand their businesses, but brand themselves. So by doing that, and this is really funny because it ties into a little bit of what everybody else here has said. So Suzanne was talking about the marketing behaviors and where the trend is for that, and how that's looking at your data and how to follow that. Carolyn was talking about the micro lending in your business startup, and that without the business startup, you're not going to go anywhere. You have to have the capital to do that. And then Kim talking about the analytics as well. I'm going to get all tongue-tied now, I apologize. But it made it quite interesting when I was looking at my topic for today and how their topics, everything we do kind of ties in together with that. And as branding, everything that they have spoke about is going to help you get to where you're going as well. Branding comes down to 3 basic things: who you are, what you do, and why it matters. Who you are meaning not just your name, but who you are in public as well as home. So who you are as a whole. What you do, not just the fact that I'm a marketer, or graphic designer, or photographer, but how does that all tie into what I'm trying to show my consumers? What do they need? We are a business-to-business support group for what we do, but we do get consumers coming in trying to figure out what we do. So then it has to go back to, why does that matter? Why should somebody look at my company over the other 10 companies in my community? What is going to be different about what we do? How are we offering that to them in a way that's going to matter in the end? Does that make sense? Okay, I like questions. By doing that, it leads us up to, so where is that taking you branding-wise with marketing? What are the trends? How should you brand yourself in the new age of 2018 with all these new social media platforms? What's going on there? How are you marketing on paper, in your newspaper? People do still do that. In your local magazines, people still read them, believe it or not. And on digital media, how does that change? Because you need to keep that message the same, but like Kim said, you need to know, what your data is. You need to know who you're marketing, who is your target audience. So there's different ways to do that besides following the data. First of all, it's one-on-one with yourself, talking about, who do I really want to market my product? When I first went from freelancing to actually having a company, I'm going to be able to go out and hit all these older businesses. That's going to be the perfect one because I want to see that generation gap break. I want to see it with everybody using social media. The analytics say that my average customer is 10 years younger than me, and it's a woman. That isn't who I originally went after. So it's really good to know that, but you got to know who you are to know what you do and why it matters to see who is actually looking at you. Does that tie in together? Okay. So, let me just tell y'all a little quick story. My house is flooding, so we had a busted pipe. That'll all be done though here soon. What I'm learning though with branding is that age shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're coming out of high school, coming out of college, or if you're retired and wanting to start again. You're starting a new career, a new lifestyle, whatever you're doing. Age shouldn't matter. When it comes to how you're marketing your business, it's going to go back down to the 3 basics. Like I said, who you are, what you do, and why it matters. It's going to go back to who is your target audience. Once you can focus on that one target audience, the rest of it will grow. By doing that, to grow from that point, you are still, again, going to look at what is trending in that day. Believe it or not, what's trending now is not what trended 6 months ago. A year ago, we were still looking at our influencers as the people that, big news, big basketball players, big movie stars. Today, it's micro-influencers. It's who likes your product the best, who is representing your brand, who is out there talking about your product every single day to do that. Micro-influencers are the biggest thing right now that you can look at. Look at your business, look at who is using your product, and get them to market your product for you. Get them to find that key component that's going to help them get out there. And I think I'm out of time, so.
Branding who you are at work, at home, everywhere you go. So I'll share a story. A few years ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was going to sit on an entrepreneurial investment panel for private equity. I was parallel parked in Washington, D.C. I was about an hour early for the panel. As I'm sitting there reading a book, my vehicle gets nudged, and I shake a little bit. Oh, okay. So I look up, and the car in front of me was backing up parallel parking and bumped into me. The gentleman walks out of the car, looks at the 2 bumpers, looks around and walks away. Never noticed me in the vehicle. 1 hour later, as I get introduced to the panel, I noticed he's one of the entrepreneurs trying to get investments. So what you do is always being watched, and your brand is represented no matter where you go and what you do. So let's give every one of our panelists a big round. Let's get controversial to our panelists. Is it data or data?
I say data.
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato.
Kim, you mentioned talking about your buyer persona or your consumer avatar, different names for the same thing. Can you give us an example of what a consumer avatar or a buyer persona would be? I put you on the spot.
I could do an archetype if you want.
Okay, you want to jump in?
You want me to do it? Okay. I call it archetypes because I'm coming at it from a different perspective. But I had a student who wanted to do a golf driving range. And he spent a lot of time actually looking at who golf uses the driving range and everything. And I tell the students they have to be able to create a literal photo of this person. Everything. They name them, they call them something. And funnily enough, he goes through this whole process and he comes up with this dude who's between 55 and 60 years old, a white guy, likes craft beers, goes out to the driving range. There's, Dad, that's my dad. And picture of his dad holding a craft brew and a golf club. By the way, his innovation was doing it by time scheduling rather than buckets of balls, if anyone does happen to hit the courses. So that was their very, and he had within the how many miles and what their income was and all of those kinds of things. And so he had a person that he could look at. And I think that's probably what you end up doing as well.
I think it's interesting because, as Kim's examples show, it is sometimes very difficult for a business to identify that persona and to really be able to flesh it out to the point of not just an age or a demographic categorization, but also a behavioral and interests and attitudes and things like that. And so what I found, especially working with small businesses in a university incubator, is that they don't really know how to do that. And so in social media and classes and analytics classes, that's what we're teaching from the very beginning, is like, what is that buyer persona? How many are there? Because we know that there can be, the whole I'm targeting everyone approach, but that's not really most efficient, right? So then we usually create about 5 or 6 of them and then ask the client to focus on their top 3. The ones that sort of, I always say, which is the one that looks most like what you thought? And then let's pick 2 others, that might not necessarily look like who you thought. And that's been very effective in terms of setting a social media audit, doing social media planning and strategizing for those businesses.
We do something also, some of you may be familiar with business model canvases or lean canvases or lean startup. We actually have the students go out and make them leave the building, as Steve Blank would say, and through a process, we're about halfway through the semester right now, they're developing their hypotheses about their key segments, and they actually have to go out and create very well thought out, carefully reviewed, pre-tested interview guides and talk to people who they think would be interested. And it's always a revelation for them, because who they think it is and who it really is often are quite different. Or they find out that the thing they thought was the selling feature wasn't the benefit that people cared about.
Right.
But I don't teach marketing.
And well, it's the same thing in any business strategy. When you're doing a SWOT analysis, it's very hard to identify your own personal weaknesses, right? And it's very hard to identify what your threats are when you haven't gotten out there to actually look at them from a different perspective and different lens. So understanding that what you do well, I always say, outsource what you don't do well. I'm never going to be good at certain things, and I have no shame in outsourcing those things to other people who are better. But I was talking to a scientist last week who's doing a STEM summer camp for women, for young girls, and I said, okay, so who's doing your social media, who's doing your website, and she's like, oh, well, I'm going to do it all. I said, okay, but shouldn't you be focused on the content of the offerings and your sort of expertise? Why would you spend even 10 hours of your time? Like, what is it worth to you? I'd much rather say, let me give it to somebody else who has that skill set, like Cyndi or Kim, and to say, look, take this off my plate. I don't need to be in control of everything. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, because they've been doing it all themselves, think they need to know everything about everything. And they don't. They just need to know resources of who to go to or how to find those individuals. And I think that's the hardest part in an entrepreneurship incubator. That's the thing that what we hear in Pembroke. A lot of times James and Tom are really the knowledge curators who can help us with this. I can't do this myself, so who can? And I think that's the value of incubators definitely in smaller cities.
So let's say our buyer persona is Boisterous Bob. Boisterous Bob is 24 to 35 years of age, earns at least $85,000 annually in household income, enjoys NASCAR, skydiving, is married with one child, and has one prior divorce. What do we do now?
Trying to figure out
What's
where
next?
those people named Boisterous Bob live and where they work and what do they do? What is it that appeals to them? So we know that they like certain things, but what do they read? What media are they on? What do they like to spend their money on besides skydiving, which you typically don't spend it on?
Sticky buns. That's what
Sticky buns. We've got to learn more about those guys. Marketing folks have lots of ways of doing that, right?
Definitely. I mean, and the biggest thing too is the content experience. What are they going to experience when they're looking at your brand and your product? What is it is it interactive? Is it a video, or is it just an image? People are going to pull to one of those three things. Just the verbiage these days doesn't work. When we just be able to put a line or two out on Facebook, they're just going to skim right past it. They're not even going to look to see what was really there. But you throw something in there that's going to make them think, make them work for it, make them, like a quiz, an online quiz. Like finding out what products people do like. Do an online quiz. See exactly which one of your products are people really looking for. Do a video on that product then. To me, marketing is like dating. You're not going to get anywhere really on the first date. You may not even get a phone number, you may not even get an email in order to reach that person. Probably about the 5th or 6th time, they're going to start looking back at you and saying, okay, I'm trusting this person, I'm trusting this brand, I'm actually seeing something that I like. So, and then you're getting somewhere.
I would just like to add that you want to look at the person's problems. People buy for two reasons: a passion or to solve a pain. To get rid of a pain. And so if they're solving if your product or service relieves them of that pain, then what kind of content can you create that would attract them to it based on they like NASCAR? So can you have a booth at a NASCAR race? I don't know what your product is, but to try and match. I forget what else you said. They like sticky buns. So they're foodies. So maybe you want to do some banner advertising on a foodie site that they might be looking at. And but if you have a banner on their ad on a sticky bun site, so if your product is selling sneakers, then you're gonna maybe their problem is their cost. They focus on the cost of the sneaker. So then on the ad, you want to put something in about how you're offering, $50 off a pair of sneakers. And that'll entice them to come over to your site. So now you hit them where they're going to be. You're solving their pain because they need a brand new pair of sneakers, and you're getting them to come to your site because you've created that content.
Let's peel the onion back on this consumer avatar and potential consumer journey. So we've identified Boisterous Bob. We have an idea of how we want to target him. We do A/B testing. The results come back equal. What's next?
Well, they're not going to be totally equal. Come on.
I can't make this easy for you.
The data's never equal. Probability is never 100%. P-values are never only two numbers or two decimals.
But you have to live with the suspended disbelief.
Right. I think that's an ideal situation, to be honest, Michael, because what that means is that you've actually, done a good job in branding, and you've done a good job, in cultivating that message and how to relieve the pain and I think then you make your decision to you don't have to choose between them. I mean, they're both effective. So then I would say that you start to test them in different time periods, as Kim was talking about. You test them in different visual contexts and across different channels. That's the other thing. So what works on Facebook, for example, is probably not going to work on Twitter. It's certainly not going to work on Instagram. And don't get me started on Snapchat. But I also think that some of the challenge is that some of this is delayed effect. So we had a client that was a retail store in Charlotte, and she did these Facebook Live videos, and it was called, and I'm gonna name her in case you guys want to shop there, but it's Giordano Charlotte, and she's gone only online and in a big RV now. But she has this live Facebook event at 9 o'clock in the mornings on Saturday. She calls it Style Box Saturday. And we wake up with her, and I might have coffee and watch Karen, literally try on different outfits, and she plays old 80s music, and she dances, and she's super fun and energetic. And she thought that this was, the best thing about her brand, and that people were going to come in on Saturdays. And so I said, great, let me take all your data. And it turned out that Style Box Saturday had a lot of views, had a lot of engagement. People were talking a lot while the video was going on. But actually, it was Tuesday when they finally bought. So strategically, she was shocked because she thought, oh, it's my Saturday day. And I said, no, it's actually Tuesday. So let's send out a reminder on Tuesday morning to all those people who watched on Saturday. And it makes sense, right? So most of her clients are women like me who have kids, and we're waking up on Saturday and the kids are still sleeping, and it's the only time we have to ourselves. And by the time the kids wake up, then you're like doing their things for the whole weekend, and Monday's back at work, and Tuesday's the first day that you go, oh man, I really want those jeans that I saw. and so that was her key buying. So her key engagement was on Saturday, but the data showed that the purchases were made on Tuesday. And it's those kinds of insights that I think that a lot of small businesses don't look at, or they equate engagement, well, I should be making lots of money on these days, they don't really make that connection between the overlap of these variables. And so that's one example, and then and I think that's kind of an interesting one from that. And then I'm going to take it old school. I had a client that was a Cuban restaurant. And they weren't into digital. They said this isn't, and then they're running their restaurant. So by 10 a.m. they were in the restaurant every day. And I said to my students, how can we do A/B testing to see what works? We did, and my marketing research students know this, but we made photocopies of coupons, some with red paper and some with blue paper. And what this client told me they could do is every day they drove by the hospital, and then they could drive by the university. And we did a test of each of the coupons in those different locations. So we put red coupons on the cars in the hospital parking lot, and blue coupons in the university parking lot. And then we just said, just count them up and save them for us at the end of the week, and we'll know what's most effective and where your audience is. So it's the same thing that you would do, without the digital side. It's the same logic of you don't always know what's going to work best and who's going to be that key customer for you. So you have to test.
Early and often.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess that's a big piece too, is to figure out what triggers the reactions when, and try not to be to introduction or launch and not know. Because the sooner you know, the less time and money you'll waste. So
right, and how important is that kind of information to a microloan? Right? I mean, aren't a lot of these companies going to have to show some evidence of,
more and more, too.
Right,
more and more,
consumer demand or proof of market?
Like, envision that lady I was talking about. Let's say she's been selling pet collars and pet clothes at flea markets for a while. Okay, when she finally goes in to talk to people about getting the loan, so she probably doesn't have any records on the tax records. Let's be honest.
They're in a
She
shoebox.
probably hasn't filed for her business license yet. Typical. And
Don't
she
judge
probably
me.
has her records. She probably has her records. She might use Square Card, so she might actually have better records than you think. But she has a track record, and she knows what was selling there and what wasn't. Now she's got to take it to the next level, but she's at least seeing something happening.
Right, and she's probably testing things too, where to put that stand in the flea market, and what kinds of signage to put up,
And
what
which flea
products to
market.
put, right, which flea market. So almost every entrepreneur who's selling something is doing this kind of testing anyway. So that's why it's always shocking that people are afraid of the word data or afraid of the word analytics or something, where you're basically like, but you're doing this anyway, So I think that we have to sort of remove that stigma that this is something that I can't do, I don't want to look at the data. Because that's how all businesses from the beginning of time, all trade happened.
I can visually see thoughts brewing from Kim and Cindy.
I think they covered a lot of it. I was just going to say, when I worked for Smithfield Chicken and Barbecue, we had a coupon that we did, and we were targeting the tailgate special at in the fall during football season, college football. And so we used coupon codes, and we changed them up based on where we were advertising. So the code was different if they got it off of Google AdWords campaign, and it was different if they found it off of Facebook, so that we can kind of track what was working and what wasn't working in our advertising. And at the end of the campaign time, we added up all the coupons, and that's how we tracked the progress of the whole entire campaign. And in the lowest store, they had an 8% increase, and in the highest store, they had a 41% increase. So overall, their tailgate special really increased because we were running this, but we were tracking it all the way. I always tell everybody, never run any, when you're doing advertising, never run any traffic to your homepage, because you're never going to be able to figure out where that came from. You always want to use a coupon code, or you send it to an internal page inside your site, so that when you're looking at your analytics, you can kind of judge, well, last month we had 50 hits, and this month we had 1,500 hits, so obviously something happened.
How do we build trust in our consumers when targeting for financial services or lending and loans?
Trust, you saw that on the list. Trust is a very, very big issue in consumer behavior anyway. When you start talking about financial behavior, it becomes really strong. And there was a reason why I said that our person had bad credit, right? And they were African American. So when you think about it, when somebody says you can get credit, are they going to believe you? I would go into communities where they would trust the loan shark better than the people from the nice building in downtown, okay? So building that trust, you have to get somebody to be that first person to say yes, or you need to have you need more contact with people. African Americans have been documented over and over again as having been redlined, having been treated in a discriminatory manner in lending, and they don't apply for loans because of fear of denial. So that was one reason I made her African American, but also people with credit, poor credit. I mean, how many times they try, and they even try to get Kohl's card, and they can't get the Kohl's card, right? So why would you loan them? In this case, I was thinking she might need $3,000. But once they understand what you're about and how you're going to work with them, that's a big factor. And that trust hurdle, I think, was probably one of the biggest challenges. Also, we tried to have loan officers who looked like our clients and a team that understood that, because that made all the difference in the world.
I'm going to take a break for a little bit, and I'm going to let the audience harass our panelists. What are your questions? Go for it, Tom.
I'm the first one. So, I'm Tom Hall. I'm the director here at the center. So is there any data or any information you guys have that tie whether someone's engaged in your site, whether they like it or whatever, into an actual purchase? And then how do you reconcile that with so many fake likes and fake friends and all these bots doing all this stuff? When it really comes down to it, what is it really doing for a business to have this social media?
Are you just talking strictly social media?
Yeah, social media. Let's stay there.
Okay. So with social media, you want to always try and drive traffic back to your website. Or there's other little apps that you could put on your Facebook page that people can make a purchase directly on the page. And even in Instagram, they can make purchases. And I think that likes are one thing because that gives you an opportunity to have some eyeballs on your content. But I think one of the things that people make a mistake doing is they curate content, which is old school, which is where they take content from other people's site and they post an article on their Facebook page. And now they think that, oh, I have 20 likes on this article, and that what is that doing for me? Is doing nothing because it's taking people to somebody else's website, not your own. So I always tell everybody, your content on your Facebook page needs to be about you, And then it's also that 80-20 rule where it should be 80% very informative and then 20% the sales. But you are selling, so it's okay to put on there if you're having a sale. It's okay if you're talking about your product and what the benefits are. And I think that you can mix up creating those videos and creating the links and the website, sending them back to your website. Then when you have your Facebook and you're doing your social media, what you want to look at is your Google Analytics, and if your Facebook is, we'll just say Facebook right now, Facebook is actually driving traffic back to your website. And then what do you want those people to do when they get back to the website? Do you want them to make a buy? Where are you sending them on the website? Because that's going to determine your sales. If you're sending everybody back to the home page, well, you better have a really strong home page that guides them and has really strong call to actions in it. And so what I always tell people is my job with SEO and social media is to drive traffic to a website. The website's job is to convert that traffic, and if you're not getting those sales, then obviously you have a breakdown either in the type of content that you're posting on social media or in the landing page that you're sending them to on your website.
I would also say I think your bigger, it seems like maybe the sub-question you're asking is, what is the value of these likes or these interactions or engagement pieces that are on social media? And I would say that really depends on what your objective is. And the nice thing about social media advertising is most of those interfaces now ask you as a business owner to establish your objective before you even set up the campaign if you're going to be doing some paid advertising. And so whether it's brand awareness, whether it is just simply getting an interaction, asking a question, getting a poll for a new color or a new design or something like that, you're asking for something, but you're also engaging. And then I think that ultimately, having a social media presence across all channels is not the answer for every company. I think that yes, you do want to have certain ones because Google's SEO, algorithm does benefit, and it gives kind of points to updating your social media channels and having a LinkedIn profile and all of those kinds of things. So there's value in that, but also the different channels are going to be based on your personas and how you want to communicate with your customers. And so if we're talking about an educational entity like the Entrepreneurship Incubator here, you're going to notice if you look at the data that there's different levels of interaction. I think the other question is, what's the value in it? I think it depends on your follow through. So, we talk about golf. It's about that backswing, right? And I think a lot of businesses think that, I'm just going to post some stuff and then not follow up, right? So this store in Charlotte is a great example where I said, you've got to follow up on Tuesdays. You need to follow up on Tuesdays, which was great for her because it was a slow day at the retail store when she had a retail store. And so many people don't then follow up with those engagements metrics to make the sale or to convert the action to something more measurable or more profitable. So I think that you can't just assume, 5 likes is going to equal X sales. Because if you don't offer something that solves the pain or solves the passion, if you don't follow up with those consumers, if you don't engage with them, if you don't provide content that is relevant and pushing them to that final sale, then it isn't valuable for you to go out there and have that have that presence.
You're collecting thousands of contacts and you just leave them away.
Right.
You just collected thousands of contacts to no real value.
I was just going to add real quick, because you're looking at your return on investment in the end. Where are the numbers directing you? And when people come to us, that's the first question they ask us when it comes to branding. How is my branding going to affect my return on investment? How is this going to equal money in my pocket in the end? And we have to explain to them it's not just accumulation of the data from your Facebook posts and definitely marking each of them so you can see where it's going, but what do the sales look like on the other end? On your website, you should have your analytics as well, showing you where those sales are coming from. Did it come from Facebook? Did it come from Instagram? And then you can match your numbers together, and then you can see what is actually working for you and see what is giving you the best ROI in the end.
Hi, Crystal Wambeck. I have a question on paid versus organic traffic.
Yes.
Do you guys have a preference for someone just getting started in advertising, or do you not really have a preference?
So for
social media, I say that there's 4 phases of social media. The first one is to actually set up your account and to have a purpose for each one. When you have a Facebook page or Twitter or Instagram, you have to have a purpose for using it. You just can't have it set up. The second phase is where you actually have to put content on the page. So if you have a little bit of content, like with Mr. Sticky's, we had to start posting content before we ran the advertising. Because if I come to your page, if I'm driven to your page through an ad and I see that you don't really have any posts, then I look at it like you don't really care about it. So I'm not going to like your page. So then the third phase is actually growing and doing paid advertising to grow your audience. And these days you're going to have to do that. And then the fourth phase is actually where it just kind of starts to grow on its own. And that phase is you have to do less advertising because now you have enough audience and you have enough people liking and commenting and participating on your page that you don't have to work quite as hard. But they're my 4 phases of social media, so I think you definitely need to at least give it a kickstart to get it going. That's how we built Mr. Sticky's.
My name is Alan, folks. I'm the executive director out here at Comtech Business Park, but I'm kind of one of those unusual oddities. I'm also a non-traditional student at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke in the business department. And my focus is kind of on marketing. It's something I've always enjoyed. I actually owned my own business for 20 years and worked for a Fortune 500 top 50 company for 7 years in management. But I'm also a consumer. And as a consumer, my question is, I know through Dr. Altobello that there are phases of a marketing campaign. My question is social media hit the point of diminishing returns? And I say that because last night I'm looking at my Facebook page and I eventually threw the phone down because I'm originally from Southern California. I joined Facebook in 2011 to be able to reconnect with people. Now all I connect with in Facebook is advertising, and it's driving me crazy. It's not just on the sides, it's in my news feed. I love marketing, but I am an advertising avoider. Give me the fast forward, give me anything else. I'm about done with Facebook. So my question is, how do you get through that? Because Facebook and social media to me has become advertising America. It's no longer what it was originally set up to be. Social media is not social with interactions with people. It's only interacting with businesses. What's going to happen?
I'd like to say something on that because I'm a student with Facebook through their Blueprint program. And one of the things they've done is they have actually noticed that. They've noticed that a lot of people are sick of the advertisements. They're sick of seeing Boost posts all the time. And with that said, though, they're trying to change the algorithm where the organic isn't going to work as much. That's where these micro-influencers are coming back in to help you with your branding because of that. But at the same time, though, they're cutting down on the spamming with that. They're trying to get people to pay for their advertising. They've come up with a completely new ad platform within the last 18 months to counteract the boosting that people are doing with the spamming that's following that. But they also bought up Instagram in the process too, because they knew that the younger generation was following that because there wasn't as much advertising. Of course, on the ad platform, you can purchase your ad through Facebook and advertise on Instagram at the same time. So eventually it's all going to come back around, but they are noticing that. How they're going to correct that at this moment, I'm not really sure, because they also offer businesses a line of code to put on their websites. So when you're on Amazon searching for a product and then you go to Facebook and you're seeing advertisements for that product, it's because Amazon has bought that line of code in order to do that so that you can see that. And as long as that code is cheap enough out there, companies are going to buy that code and put it in there so that they can do that. And unfortunately, it's all going to tie in together. It's going to be across everything in the end is what I'm predicting. That it doesn't matter where you go, what you say, what you do, you're going to see something about that, about your life, show back up in your face on social media. But how do we live without social media now? It's already there and it's growing. That's how we reconnect, like you said.
I think you can make the argument that that sort of tipping point, or I'm going to steal Michael's nudge to a push type of idea. I think that that's different for each consumer and on each different channel. But I will make the argument that every innovation in media, whether it be radio to television to DVDs to, to now our digital space, there's always people who threaten to leave because they don't want to pay or they don't want to accept the sort of terms of engagement. And for lack of a better word, you have to decide for yourself whether the value of connecting with those friends and family and other benefits that you get from social media is worth the advertising that you see because of it. And I think that I make the argument of professional sports because, or sort of must-see TV events where you're willing to sit through the advertisement, or a lot of my research is on product placements now because you can't avoid those, right? So those become more valuable to an organization for branding purposes. And where are places where you can't, you're willing to obtain those marketing messages in exchange for the experience or in exchange for whatever benefit you see. And I think that just happens naturally as we cycle through these kinds of experiences.
I'm Stacy Simfukwe with Houseful 6 Catering. It's an online bakery. I'm on the other side of that. As a business owner and a small business owner, I depend a lot on social media and Facebook and Instagram for people to actually know what my brand is. And I noticed that Facebook is changing their algorithm where they are kind of cutting back on the ads, and that's kind of my lifeblood for people to understand who I am and what I do. So I was wondering, what is your suggestions for small businesses, because that is cheap advertising for us to get people to know who we are and what we do.
They are really trying to get away from the boost. Eventually, I think we're going to see that go completely away. They are switching to their ad platform. With that, that's when I always come back to who are your influencers in your company? Is it your employees? Is it you got some definite followers that are there to help you organically boost that? Going back to Crystal's question, organic versus paid, you can still do organic. It's just a lot more work on this end. That also comes back to who do you hire to do that for you? Can you handle it all on your own? Do you have the funds there to handle it, to pass it on to somebody else? Because it's becoming a 24-hour game of chasing that, trying to do it organically, trying to do it paid, is that the price is going to keep going up. The more that they see they can make money from it, the more they're going to start charging us to advertise our businesses. But it's a hard game right there. But again, like I said, they are seeing the spamming. People are complaining about the spamming, and therefore they're going to find a way around that, and that's just going to be making us pay more. A lot of photographers are seeing it right now where they can't boost their posts anymore of just pictures because Facebook has said, well, this is spamming. You're targeting too wide of a market. You're targeting too deep of a market. You need to narrow your search down. So coming back to knowing who your target audience is, fine-tuning it, breaking it down into multiple ads. I'm going to target this audience, I'm going to target that audience, I'm going to target that audience. Just trying to break it up and doing it in smaller segments instead of trying to do the whole world at once.
I would also recommend that you do, to Crystal's point of organic, a little bit more engagement with your followers. And that engagement could be, what flavor topping am I putting on this cupcake today? You choose, and have a poll right inside your post. That's not a paid post. You could ask for contests. People love to be user-generated content. You share, share, and comment for a chance to win, a dozen, buns, sticky buns or something. They're going to go to your office, and so you're basically asking your existing followers to share their experiences with your business, with their network. So it's just really absorbing that through the types of posts you do to make those more organic, to ask questions rather than just, here's the flavors of the day. Ask people what they think should be the flavors of the day, and I think that's really where you get that engagement that feels valuable. So it's sort of this idea of, I am, your social promoter, I am your influencer. Because the people who do share, then I say to people, go back and thank those people, right? So you want to go back and get all that information of who did the shares. You want to reach out to them individually. I appreciate your post. You want to encourage your past clients to rate you on Facebook, to rate you on Google, to if you get a customer testimonial via an email or a private message, even a text message, write them back and say, do you mind if I use this on my social media and my marketing activities? And most of the time they say, sure, that's great. Can I use you by name? Can I name you by name? Of course you can. Well, then you have this legitimacy, and it's just like old school PR,
Hello, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. My name is Wendy, and I run Strength for Spouses blog to inspire and uplift military spouses. My question is also about social media, and I've heard mixed reviews when you're trying to build a business about the importance of a following. So I've heard build your following, build your following, build your following, pour everything into that, but I've also heard the value of the user engagement should be more value than the high following. So there's always a mixed review there when you're starting to build a business on social media as to what to put your time and effort into. And it's easy to get lost in that shuffle and get away from the goal of the business when you're trying to do that. And it's also something that brands have mixed reviews. So they want somebody who has a 27,000 following on Facebook, but when they post things, maybe 2 people like it? Or do they want someone with a lower following that has a lot of user engagement on their posts? So what are your thoughts on that?
I would think all of us would say quality over quantity.
Yep. That's what I was thinking.
So one of the friends of mine, he started working with a Nike dealer, and he's a brand manager. He made a comment that they were doing a lot of paid advertising, especially on Facebook and Instagram, and they were getting a lot of people from all outside the local area where they were really trying to market. And so when they stopped advertising and they started focusing on contests and giving away coupons or giving away sneakers or whatever their product was, they saw a big boost in engagement. And I think that advertising is nice if it's very, very, very targeted, but engagement is definitely much more valuable. And you said you ran a blog, and I think that subscribers would be better than followers for you. And so you want to try and get the people who are following you to subscribe. And that would be, when you're trying to get advertising dollars, that's where you would make the money at.
If you look at there's something called the Get, Keep, Grow funnel. And it's actually not a funnel. It has the 2 funnel ends. It's like a bow tie. It's actually the Get, Keep, Grow bow tie. But that acquisition, which would be alike, is a precursor, but not a necessary. It's necessary, but it won't necessarily get you to activating. So having somebody there, getting their interest is awesome. But the person who's engaged is going to spend the money if there's money to be spent. Okay, the person who just lands there and says, hey, I'll give you my contact information because I'd like to look at your site. Okay, it's better than not doing that, right? That's what click-throughs get you. But once you get them there, it's the one that does something else. Even if they shop and leave something in the cart, you have somewhere to go with it. Does that make sense? So if you look at that, and then the rest of it is to keep them because it costs you about 5 times as the number they use these days, as much to get a new person than to retain the existing one. And then you focus on how you grow them. So that acquire thing comes first.
All right, panelists, if any of the audience members or Clicksuasion listeners on iTunes and Google Play want to get in contact with you or harass you, how could they find you?
I'm just doing the work. First of all, Caroline Glackin, and it's Glackin. You can usually just Google me and I'll tell you wherever I am. But C. Glackin at UNC-FSU, for University of North Carolina-Pembroke State University. .edu is your best bet. Or if I happen to be wandering around the co-working space in Fayetteville, that's another place to find me. But email is best.
For listeners of Clicksuasion, I think I used this at the end of our very first episode together, Michael, but talk about personal branding. My last name is Altobello. It means tall and beautiful in Italian. My dad said I got none of the first and all of the last. So those that are here know that I'm a little bit vertically challenged. So, but it's a way to remember my name. And so my students should never forget how to spell my name. It's very simple, 2 compound words. And so it's altobello.research@gmail.com or just altobello@UNC-Pembroke, uncp.edu.
Kim Adamof, Adamof, and my email address is kadamof, kadamof@gmail.com, or you can find me at LinkedIn. Just Google, just put in my name, LinkedIn, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, same.
And Cyndi Fifield, you can find me under my name or my business, Nova or Novae, however you want to pronounce it. We give up. Nova Design Group, and that is Novae. That's where we get the Novae from with it, Design Group. And my email would be just my first name, Cyndi, Cyndi, @novadesignGroup.com. Find me either under my business or personally, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm still on Twitter, so.
Let's give a big round of our panelists. This episode couldn't have been made possible without Thomas Hall from the Thomas Family Center for Entrepreneurship here at UNC-Pembroke. Without the help of Sand Hills Music Studio. And all of the amazing staff at the Thomas Center for Entrepreneurship here at UNC-Pembroke. I'm going to invite Thomas Hall up too, no relation to the center, but he is the director, Thomas Hall for UNC-Pembroke.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for coming, and Clicksuasion, thanks for the panel. I just want to spend a minute talking about the center. This is the Thomas Center for Entrepreneurship Incubator. Our mission is to help startups succeed so they create jobs. It's a pretty simple metric. And there's two ways that we really get at meeting that objective. First of all, this facility is newly renovated, 20,000 square feet. We have 9 incubator spaces, 12 accelerator spaces, an idea lab, and a maker space.
Thanks for listening. Once again, this is your host, Michael Barbera. Subscribe to Clicksuasion, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Clicksuasion. Subscribe to the podcast, read our research, and get in touch with us at clicksuasion.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @Clicksuasion.